If you are looking at buying a motorized slider, then you definitely need to check out the slider I'm going to show you in this video. Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard Wong here, welcome back to the channel. Last year, I have published about 70 videos here on YouTube. I did a lot of reviews reviewing different camera lenses, smartphones, smartware, and a lot of camera accessories. But the product that I was most interested about is actually one of the most basic, most manual camera accessories. And the one that I'm talking about is this Zeapon Micro 2 slider. I still haven't really figured out exactly why I was so excited about this slider. Maybe it was because the design of this slider is very nice, the motion is very smooth, it's also very compact, and the price is also very affordable. So I have actually been using it a lot since last year. Most of the product shot you saw on this channel in the last couple of months were shot using this slider. Recently, Zeapon has sent me another of their new product, and this time it is a motorized slider, and this is this Motorized Micro 2. This Motorized Micro 2 looks very similar to the original manual Micro 2. The size is quite similar, the Motorized Moto 2 is a little bit bigger, and the slider itself is made of metal just like the original Micro 2, and there's a belt in the middle to pull the camera that is attached to the slider. At this side here we have the motor module with a couple of physical buttons here, and also this place it takes the Sony NP-F battery. And on the other side you can find underneath this flip here, you have the USB-C port that you can use to upgrade the firmware, or you can use a power delivery power bank to power the slider. And you also have the 2.5mm port here for you to connect to a camera so that you can use it to take time-lapse videos. To install and use this slider is very easy. Okay, let me just move away this Micro 2 slider. What you need to do is first attach it to a tripod, or in my case I have the Zeapon EasyLock here, so I can just attach it to the slider itself and lock it, but you can just use a tripod. Now the next thing is to attach a tripod head onto the slider, so it's here, and then just attach your camera. And then you just need to attach the power. You can either use a Sony NP-F type battery, or if you have a power bank that supports power delivery, then you can use that to power the Zeapon slider instead. I don't have any power bank that have power delivery feature, and I tried the normal power bank, it doesn't really work, so you definitely need a power bank that has the power delivery feature. So today I'm just going to use a Sony NP-F battery. Just install it here, and then I press the power button on this side, and the slider is now ready to use. And to use it is also very easy, so there are two buttons at the top. So one is for moving it to the left and one is for moving to the right, and there's a power button on the side of the motor, so you can use it to turn on and turn off the slider. And also if you quickly tap it, then you can change the speed of the motor between one of the three possible speed, from the slowest like this, to the medium speed like this, to the fastest speed, which is like this. So you can quickly change between one of the speed by just quickly tapping the power button. And you can also set the start and end point of the slider by double tapping the power button. So now if I double tap it, you hear the beep, it's set the start point. And then if I move it a little bit like here, okay, now if I double tap it, and then it set the end point, you hear the double beep. And now if I double tap the power button again, then it will move between the start and end point. And when you double tap the button to start the movement, there is a little bit of delay to allow the slider to stop the vibration caused by pressing the button. I have discussed with Zeapon about is it possible to allow user to adjust the delay, because I feel like sometimes the user may not actually want the delay, but on the other hand sometimes the user may actually want a bigger delay to minimize any kind of vibration that is caused by pressing the button. They told me they will definitely consider adding this feature in the firmware update in the future. And if you want to reset the start or end point that you have set, you just need to click and hold both the left and right button, and that will reset the start and end point so that you can reprogram the slider again. I really like the fact that there are multiple buttons on the slider, so you don't have to bring out your smartphone every time you want to use this slider, because a lot of sliders in the market, they completely rely on the smartphone to do even the most basic function. While with this Zeapon Motorized Micro 2, you can either use the buttons on the slider, or if you want, they also have a smartphone app that you can use to control the slider. However, one thing is, I do wish there are more buttons on the slider. I don't mean I want to have like 20-30 buttons. I think if there is 1 or 2 more buttons, then it will be much better, because right now, while the basic function like moving the slider or changing the speed or setting the start end point can all be set without using the smartphone app, some of the most advanced features or settings, for example to enable the loop mode, can only be accessible by using the smartphone app. And my understanding is that it's purely because there are only 3 buttons on the slider, so if you are trying to add too many features by just using these 3 buttons, it is doable, but it may make the control quite complicated and quite hard to use. So that's why I wish there are maybe 1 or 2 more buttons to allow you to access some of the more advanced features. While this Motorized Micro 2 is very compact, the total length is only 34 cm, but because of its dual track design, so the total travel from one end to the other end is actually 54 cm, which is a lot longer than most other compact slider in the market. However, because of its really long travel distance and the fact that the motor and the battery are all installed on the one side of the slider, there's one little problem, is that if you fully extend the slider to one end, and your tripod is not a very big and stable one, or especially worse if you are using this EasyLock, then the slider could tip over when it's fully extended to one side. So you just have to be really careful when you do that. I'm just going to show you the example. I'm trying to fully extend it. You notice that it will start to tip over when it's getting near the edge of the fully extended range. So this is not really a big problem if you have a decent tripod, but it's just one thing that you have to watch out and be careful when you are moving and using this slider. And another thing I want to talk about is just how smooth this slider is. Everything from the starting of the movement to when it's moving at a constant speed, and when you let go of the button and it's slow down, everything just moves very, very smooth. I think that's probably the most important thing when you choose a slider, because why you get a slider? Because you want a very smooth movement, and this Motorized Micro 2 is definitely super smooth. Before I continue and talk about the noise level and carrying capacity, I want to talk about the smartphone app that can also be used to control the slider. One thing I want to emphasize is that the app that I'm using right now is a pre-release app. I didn't even download it from Google Play. Zeapon just emailed me the APK file and I just manually installed it onto the phone. So definitely this is not the final release version, but still overall the app looks very nice, and to connect to the slider is very easy. Just turn on the slider, and then when you start the app, and then you go to the connection page, and you can immediately see the slider, press the button, and within like 5 seconds or so, and it already paired with the slider, and then you can go back to the main page, and then you can start use the app to control the slider. The app provides you a lot more advanced control that you cannot do with just the buttons on the slider. For example, you can set up multiple waypoints, you can change the slider speed between each of the waypoints, and you can easily add or disable some of the waypoints. And there are also two different screens. The first screen is for you to set up the normal slider movement, while the second screen allows you to set up the slider for taking time-lapse videos. As I just mentioned, the app I use is a pre-release version, so maybe because of that, sometimes the software will stop responding after using it for a while, and I feel some of the UI can be a little bit more polished, but what I see right now is already pretty good. I really quite like the overall design and just how easy and quickly I can just pair it with the slider. I definitely wish Zeapon will continue to improve and polish the app to make it even better and add more features to it in the future. And if you have used the app and got any feedback about how you want to improve the app, what feature you want to see, or some changes to the user interface that you see would benefit most users, feel free to drop a comment below. I'm pretty sure the guys from Zeapon will definitely be reading the comments and feedbacks on this video. So yeah, if you have any feedback, just drop a comment below so that they can use it to help improve their products. When I reviewed the original Micro 2 slider, I got a lot of feedback from people that tell me why they want a manual slider over a motorized slider is because the manual slider is a lot more quiet compared to a motorized slider. So for the video that they want to shoot, they cannot actually use a motorized slider because they need it to be really quiet. So now I want to do a demo to you to show you how quiet or how noisy the slider is when I am operating at the different speed. You can see that my microphone is just right here, so it is very close to the slider. I'm pretty sure even if you are shooting interviews, your microphone would be a lot further away from the slider. So keep that in mind. Whatever you hear in this video in a real life situation, the noise level from the slider will probably be a lot lower. And also my room right now is very quiet. I'm filming this video at midnight right now. So let's start by using this slider at the slowest speed. I would say I definitely cannot hear any noise at all. The only maybe very tiny noise is just because of the slider itself, just exactly the same as if it is just the manual slider. Now let me change it to the medium speed and see how quiet or how noisy the slider is. With this setting, I definitely can hear a little bit of motor noise, but I imagine if the slider is more than maybe 1 meter away, you probably wouldn't be able to hear any noise from the motor or the slider at all. Okay, now I set the speed to the fastest speed. Let's hear how noisy this motorized slider is when it's running at the full speed. I definitely can hear the motor sound a lot easier when it's running at the fastest speed. Even compared to the medium speed, the motor noise is also a lot more noticeable. But I think if you are using this slider in an area that has a bit of background noise, you probably wouldn't be able to hear too much noise from the slider itself. Now let's talk about the carrying capacity, because I think this is another very big selling point for this Motorized Micro 2. The factory claims that the carrying capacity for this slider is 4.5 kg, and not only that, this 4.5 kg carrying capacity is an all direction carry capacity. That means you can have the slider going vertically and the carry capacity is still 4.5 kg. So that is the factory claim figure. So I did a little bit of testing to see whether it actually can carry some heavy camera. What I did is I mounted a Nikon 200 to 500 f5.6 super telephoto lens onto the Z6 with the FTZ adapter and then with the battery, memory card, etc. So the total weight of the setup is almost 4 kilograms. I mounted the camera on the slider and have this motorized micro 2 set up in the vertical orientation, and the slider can take this huge camera no problem at all, and it can go up, it can go down easily, and there was absolutely no sign that the slider is struggling to take the weight of this big camera setup. Definitely can handle a near 4 kilogram camera setup in vertical orientation very easily. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this motorized Micro 2 slider is very similar to the manual Micro 2 slider because it is a manual Micro 2 slider with the motorized module attached to it. So if you have already bought a Micro 2 manual slider, what you can do is you just need to buy a motorized module, and then you can easily attach to your manual slider and convert it to a motorized slider. And to install this motorized module onto the manual slider is actually very easy. You basically just need to remove 2 of the screws from the slider, and then you can remove part of this belt from it, and then you just need to attach this motorized module onto your manual slider. It will probably take you, the first time it will take you 10 minutes, but if you do it once or twice, and then it will probably only take you 2 or 3 minutes if you want to convert your manual slider into a motorized slider or convert it back to a manual slider. One thing why you may want to convert it from the motorized slider back to the manual slider is that because once you have the motorized module installed, you cannot use the slider as a manual slider anymore, so the whole thing is locked. So even if I try to move it, it doesn't move at all. It is kind of a safety feature so that if your battery suddenly died, the camera wouldn't suddenly fall down and drop to one side, especially when you have the slider set up in an angle. But at the same time, that stops you from being able to use it as a manual slider, because sometimes I think there are some certain situations you would probably still want to use a manual slider instead of a motorized slider. So yeah, that's why I say you may want to change your motorized slider back to a manual one if you already bought a manual slider and then bought the add-on motorized module. If you are just buying the motorized Micro 2 itself, then you don't have the option to change it back to a manual slider. So this may be something that you can consider if you are thinking of buying this motorized slider. You may think about whether you may want to use it as a manual slider, because if you do want to do that, then maybe buying 2 separately would give you more flexibility. But on the other hand, this is quite good because for a lot of users, they are not too sure whether they want to invest a lot of money into a slider. They can buy the cheaper manual slider first, and then they use it for a while. If they like, they can then buy the motorized module to upgrade it into a motorized slider. So I have been using this motorized Micro 2 slider for at least more than 1 month now, and I have to say once again, I am very impressed and very excited about this updated version of this slider again. I'm not saying this is a perfect slider, because there are definitely a few things that I want to see improve. For example, the app can definitely be a little bit more polished and also make it a little bit more stable. And this module, I love to see 1 or 2 more extra buttons on it, so that would allow me to change some of the more advanced settings without having to use the smartphone app. And also because all the weight is on one side of the slider, so I really have to be careful if I want to extend the slider all the way to the end, especially when I have one of the heavier camera attached to the slider. But despite that, I still think this is probably the best compact motorized slider in the market right now, because if you look at the other options in the market, I think the closest competitor is the Slider 1 V2 from Adacom. The price of the Adacom is very similar to the Zeapon. The Adacom is a little bit smaller, but on the other hand, while the Zeapon is slightly bigger, its total travel distance is almost double that of the Adacom. So that is one big advantage with this Zeapon slider. And also this Zeapon Micro 2 has physical buttons on the module itself, so you don't always have to rely on the smartphone, while the Edicon is always have to use the smartphone app, which is not really handy if you want to set up and do something very quickly, or if your smartphone ran out of battery. And also the Zeapon's vertical carrying capacity is pretty much double that of the Edicon. So altogether it makes me feel the Zeapon is a much better choice than the Edicon. Now the Edicon, they do have a higher model, which is the Slider 1 Pro, which has the same vertical carrying capacity as the Zeapon, but that slider is like double the price of this Zeapon Motorized Micro 2, and also the travel distance is still half the travel distance of the Zeapon. So I don't think that is a better buy than this Zeapon. But to be fair, the Edicon is a more complete package. There are a lot more modules that you can buy and have them work together to give you a lot more flexibility how you can set up a shot, while the Zeapon at this moment you can only do a one direction panning shot. However, when I look at the app, I noticed that the app actually has more feature that this slider definitely does not offer. So I talked to Zeapon and asked them what's up, why there are something that seems to be missing, and they told me that there are other modules will be coming very soon. So I guess when those modules arrive, then it would allow the Zeapon to be feature-wise very similar to the Edicon system. Thank you very much for watching this video. What do you guys think about this Zeapon Motorized Micro 2? Feel free to drop a comment below and let me know what you think and what are the new features or improvement you want to see from Zeapon, so that they can see your feedback and it help them to improve their products.